back to Lori's Kitchen. Today we're going to be making beef and broccoli in the Instant Pot, one of the famous Asian dishes that you find at Chinese restaurants. It's so tender in the Instant Pot. The beef, it just melts in your mouth. So let me show you what it looks like. I use chuck roast to make the beef really tender. You can use frozen or fresh broccoli. So if you don't like it as tender as my beef comes out, you can always reduce the cook time by just a bit if you like your meat a little more chewy. So come along with me and let's make some beef broccoli in the Instant Pot together. Let's take a look at the ingredients needed to make this recipe. Approximately 2 pounds of flank steak. If you can't find flank steak, you can use flat meat or even chuck roast. 2 tablespoons of vegetable or canola oil for browning the meat. I'm using a pound of frozen broccoli. This is from Costco, but if you don't like broccoli as much as I do, you can use about 12 ounces. 1 cup of water, 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, 1 tablespoon of minced ginger. I didn't have fresh, so I used this pre-prepared. A teaspoon of red pepper flakes crushed, but if you don't like it that hot, then you can go ahead and reduce the amount. A half a cup of soy sauce, and I'm using gluten-free soy sauce, so anyone who's gluten sensitive can eat this dish. 2 teaspoons of sesame oil, 1 cup of beef broth, and if you don't have beef broth, you can make your own with Better Than Bouillon, 1 tablespoon to 1 cup of water. 1/3 of brown sugar, and if you want to make this keto, you can use Swerve brand brown sugar substitute. It works just the same. You use the same amount that you would as regular brown sugar. 1/4 cup of cornstarch with about 2 tablespoons of cold water to make a slurry. Or if you're following a keto diet, you use 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum for thickener. For garnish, I like to use toasted sesame seeds, and I like to use some green onions. I'm using about 3 green onions here, about 1/4 cup. Let's get started. We're going to start by making our broth. Since I don't have beef broth, I'm going to use my Better Than Bouillon. Take a tablespoon or so and mix it into my hot water. I have 1 cup of hot water here. And I'm just going to use a small whisk to combine it thoroughly till it's all dissolved. We're going to begin making our sauce. We're going to take a large bowl, put in our cup of beef broth. I'm going to add my ginger paste. I'm going to use about a tablespoon or so. My ginger paste is almost empty, so I'm hoping I have enough for this recipe. Again, if you like a lot of ginger, you can even add more. If you don't like it quite so strong, you can always add less. Going to move on to my red pepper flakes. Time to put in our soy sauce. As you can see, I am using the gluten-free Kikkoman soy sauce. This is going to be gluten-friendly recipe. I'm going to be adding my 1/2 cup. Now I'm showing you both ways how to make this keto and gluten-free, and you don't have to make it both. You can make it regular, gluten-free, or keto. Just follow along with the instructions. Now I'm going to add in my minced garlic. I like to buy the big jar at Costco because I use a lot of it, and sometimes I just don't have time to grind fresh garlic. So I'm going to be adding in my tablespoon of garlic that's minced. I'm adding in my 1/3 cup of brown sugar. If you end up liking your sauce sweeter, you can add up to 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Again, if you want to make this keto, you would use the same equivalent of Swerve brown sugar substitute. I'm making this gluten-free but not keto friendly. Now I'm adding in one of my favorite ingredients in Asian cooking. It's sesame oil. Now this recipe does call for a lot, and sesame oil goes a long way, but this is one of the most important flavors and fragrances in this dish. So now I'm going to give my sauce a stir, incorporating all the ingredients together. And now that the sauce is ready, let's move on to preparing our beef. First, I'm going to plug in my Instant Pot. I'm going to hit saute and let it warm up while I'm cutting up my meat. Since flank steak usually is rolled up and is a large piece of meat, I'm going to go ahead and use my largest cutting board that I have and unwrap the beef. Now I'm going to be cutting it into more manageable size pieces. You can see I'm making slices here. And you want to be able to cut the meat against the grain. So right now the slices are too big, so I'm cutting them in half. And these are the sizes of beef strips that I want for my recipe. If it's still too long for you, you can cut them in half again, but I prefer them like this. This is the way I normally see them when I go to Asian restaurants and order Mongolian beef. And I try to cut it as thin as possible. Once I finish cutting this section of the meat against the grain, I just continue with the rest of the pieces. And this is what your finished product should look like after cutting all the meat. Once your Instant Pot display says hot, you know you're ready to start cooking. So I'm adding in my 2 tablespoons of cooking oil. Now that I've let my oil sit for about a minute, I'm ready to start sauteing my pieces of beef. And I'm going to lay them flat in the Instant Pot. I want each side to get a nice sear before we cook it under pressure in the Instant Pot. It's been searing for about a minute, minute and a half. Now it looks like it's ready to be turned over, and I'm going to go ahead and flip my pieces over, and you can see the nice brown sear. If you try to turn it over too soon, the meat will be sticking to the bottom of the Instant Pot, and you don't want to be tearing your beef pieces. Once it's done searing on the second side, we're going to take it out and put it on a clean dish. And you're going to see there's some beautiful brown bits at the bottom. And we're going to repeat this with the rest of the meat. Now, some people may think this is a little bit tedious and unnecessary. One reason why I like searing my meat is, first of all, the meat has such a wonderful flavor, but it adds so much flavor from all the brown bits into your sauce. If you decide to just cook it under pressure without browning it, you're going to lose a lot of flavor in your overall recipe. So for me, if I have the time, I love to brown meat. There's a very few times that I don't brown meat before I cook it under pressure. So continue with the rest of your meat and we'll move on to the next step. Now we're going to move on to deglazing the pan. It's one of the most important steps in the process of sauteing in your Instant Pot. 1, it adds a lot of flavor to your sauce, and 2, it prevents burn errors. So I like to use a wooden spatula. I put in about 1/4 cup of water, and you can see I just am lightly scraping the bottom and all the bits come off. You want to make sure there's no bits stuck to the bottom, otherwise you might potentially get a burn error. Now that the pan is properly deglazed, I'm going to add my beef right back into the Instant Pot. We're not using a trivet for this recipe. Add in my beautiful sauce. I'm going to give it another stir just to make sure nothing separated while it was sitting there. Going to mix my beef with the sauce, just ensuring that all the meat has some of the yummy deliciousness of the sauce on it. Now, since I always take out my sealing ring and wash my lid between uses, I need to put my sealing ring back into the track, ensuring that it's connected and snug in the rack. Now it's time to put on the lid. I'm going to lock it into place. Most importantly, make sure the valve is set to sealing. So now I'm going to hit cancel in case the saute was still on, and hit pressure cook on high for 10 minutes. Since I'm using frozen broccoli, I'm going to go ahead and cook the broccoli in the microwave to defrost it and cook it gently. As you know, frozen broccoli is already pre-cooked, so it's basically to just thaw it out. I don't want to put it in the Instant Pot because frozen broccoli seems to get too soggy in there when I cook it that way. Once my 10-minute cooking time in the Instant Pot has completed, you'll see L000. That lets you know it's under natural pressure release. And now I'm going to let it sit for a natural pressure release for 10 minutes. Now that it's reached a natural pressure release of 10 minutes, I'm going to hit cancel. And that turns off the keep warm. Now we're going to finish it by doing a quick release, releasing the rest of the pressure. Once the pin drops, we know it's safe to open the lid. I carefully turn the lid counterclockwise, make sure I don't burn myself with the steam, and give the meat and sauce a gentle stir. I'm going to put on my saute button because now we're going to finish off the sauce. I'm adding in my cornstarch slurry. I'm not making the keto version, but if you're making the keto version, this is where you'd put in your 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum. You don't want to add too much xanthan gum too quickly because it could thicken on you too fast. So I'm using the cornstarch slurry, and as you can see, it's thickened quite nicely very quickly. I'm actually tasting the sauce just to see how the seasoning is, and it's just perfect. Now I'm adding in my frozen broccoli that I warmed up in the microwave. Just give it a nice stir. Look how beautiful that is. I wish you could smell that. It looks so delicious. And there you have it, beef and broccoli in the Instant Pot. In the description of my video, I'll have modifications for the keto version, gluten-free version, and how to use fresh broccoli in this recipe. So if you enjoyed my recipe, please give my video a thumbs up and comment down below. If you would like to see more of my videos, please hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell to be informed when my next weekly video is available. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye-bye.